Melting point. Melting point analysis is an important tool when it comes to chemical analysis, as a compound's melting point is a physical characteristic of it and can be used for an analysis as well as estimating the purity. A powdered sample is placed in a capillary tube that can be found in a container on top of the instrument labeled new. If the analyte is coarse, a mortar can be used to grind it down to a finer powder. Here, aspirin is used to demonstrate the process. Getting the compound into the capillary tube is done by turning the tube upside down and dabbing the opening into the powder. The tube is then struck down against a hard surface, such as the lap bench. This forces the analyte to the bottom of the tube. This process is repeated until 2 to 4 millimeters of compound have been collected into the tube. After turning the instrument on, the menu button is pressed. From there, the settings can be altered with the arrow keys, choosing the set point, max point, and the gradient for the sample. The set point should be at least 10 degrees lower than the theoretical melting point for the compound being analyzed. For the first run, the gradient can be higher, or 4 to 10 degrees, but should be lowered when possible to get a more accurate melting point. The max point needs to be significantly higher than the theoretical value so that a correct melting point can be seen. After saving the settings, the tube containing the sample is placed into the device, and then the start button is pressed. In the middle, there are 3 green buttons corresponding to the channels for the tubes. When the sample first starts showing signs of melting, the button is pressed. When the sample seems halfway melted, the button is pressed for the second time. Lastly, the button is pressed when the sample is fully melted. When the sample is fully melted, the stop button can be pressed and the temperature gradient can be seen. Finally, the sample is removed and placed into the used tube on top of the device. The instrument is then given time to cool down to room temperature, and then the instrument can be turned off.